Welcome back, guys. This is CIT 225 Network Security and Penetration Testing, and we are covering a book called Guide to Computer Forensics and Investigations. We covered up to different Linux forensics tools which are used in order to investigate the stuff. Now we are talking about other GUI tools and what are their benefits and advantages and disadvantages of it. GUI forensic tools can simplify digital forensics since you can see everything in a graphical user interface. You don't have to worry about collecting the things together or comparing the things side by side. In a graphical user interface, you can compare different hashboards and lots of data together in a single screen, whereas in a command line interface, it would give you an output, but you'll have to compile it and you'll have to compare it yourself. Have also simplified training for the beginning or examiners. Most of the people are still not good into typing stuff and memorizing the command, so graphical user interface had made it very much easy for those guys just to follow the instructions which are there on the screen. Most of them have put together the suite of tools, different tools which are used for investigative purposes. Their advantages are they are very easy to use, multitasking is there, and there is no need to learn the older operating systems. Now, the disadvantage is excessive resources requirements. Command line interface tools are fairly simple to use, and they don't require a lot of resources from the computers. Whereas the graphical user interface softwares, they require a reasonably powerful computer in order to run certain tasks. Most of the graphical user interface programs are maintaining their own database where they are managing all the data which is collected or the findings through the investigative process. So that's make them a little bit heavier than the command line interface. It produce inconsistent results. I don't think so. I don't agree with this point. It does provide accurate results. Depend what kind of parameters you're selecting. Create tool dependencies. Investigator may want to use only one tool. Should be familiar with more than one type of tools. Again, it really depends. If you are comfortable using a specific software, that's fine. There is no need to learn all the different kind of commands and stuff if you can do all those things on a graphical user interface. The other advantage which is there of graphical user interface over the command line is that you can easily migrate the data from one form of data to another, whereas in command line it takes quite a number of steps in order to do those kind of things. Now, when we are deciding for hardware tools which are required for forensics analysis, we must consider lots of things which are associated with the hardware that we have purchased. It's just like any other equipment that we purchase. Buying a car requires some maintenance afterwards as well. Same goes for these technologies. Hardware can eventually fail. You can schedule the equipment replacement periodically, or you must upgrade the equipment with the passage of time. Sometimes it happens that the hardware equipment that you purchase was limited to a certain operating system, or it could perform certain operations under a specific scenario. So you must plan all those things well ahead of time when you are upgrading the infrastructure, when you're upgrading the equipment which is required for forensics analysis. Budget is the biggest constraint. How much money you'll be paying for that, whether the license is lifetime or you'll have to renew it on annual basis. What about the support contracts? What would happen if it would fail? Spare parts. Then the consultant or vendor fee, if it's associated with that, or when are you anticipating that you will be changing the equipment. Carefully consider all these things when you are planning to set up your own lab. Then further you'll have to see that whether the workstations can be mobilized from one place to another or not, whether they are portable, lightweight, or you would require some help from the external sources. balance what you need in the system. For example, the RAM, the computational power, the capacity as far as the hard disk is concerned. So building a forensics workstation is not as difficult as it sounds like. There are lots of advantages. You can customize it as per your own needs, or you can save money in terms of if you are using a forensics lab for any kind of investigation. Disadvantages is hard to find support for the problems if it's a special kind of a hardware or a computer that you have set it up, and if it's having some kind of hardware issues and those hardware equipment are not available locally, you'll be stuck and you'll have to rely on the external sources. It can become a little bit expensive if proper preventive maintenance is not conducted for those PCs. Also, you need to identify what you need to intend, like what kind of things you'll be investigating with those things. Some vendors offer the workstation designed for digital forensics. It would come up with the baseline requirements which are there for any kind of investigative platform. For example, FRED unit from digital intelligence, it comes up with a unique kind of a hardware, and the hardware mounts from the forensics PC, which you can connect it to this PC and start your forensics analysis. Now, having a vendor support can save you time and frustration when you have problem. But in these kind of support also, you have different levels of support. For example, the support level could be a silver, golden, or they decided that what would be the response time in case you are suffering or you are going through a problem. If it would require a physical presence of an engineer to come and fix the problems, or it could be fixed online. You can mix and match components to get the capabilities you need for your forensics workstation. Now, using a write blocker is very important, and we have been constantly talking about this thing because we want to make sure that the data which is stored on the initial PC which has been compromised or the suspect's machine shall not be altered by any ways. So it prevents the data write to the hard disk. Software enabled blockers are there. Typically runs in the shell mode in a Windows command line interface. For example, PD block in digital intelligence, or hardware components are there for GUI forensics tools. It's act as a bridge between the suspect drive and the forensics drive, so that nothing goes from the suspect drive to the forensics drive. We have seen that if you are using USB sticks or some storage medium, SS based storage mediums, nowadays there is a hardware button coming on the hard drives, with the help of which you can lock the writing on that hard drive, and it makes it 100% safe that nothing moves or altered from this disk to the external disk. We did it in one of the lab exercises as well, where we changed the registry settings and we prevented Windows from saving anything to the USB. You can navigate to the block drive with many applications because it would be still able to read it, discard the written data for OS or any data of the copy which is written, or you might think that it could make the changes. Connecting the technologies using the FireWire or USB 3. 2 is too old and too slow to transfer the data nowadays. Then we can use SATA or eSATA. PATA and SCSI are again SCSI is still fast, but PATA is a bit older way to handle the things. Now, recommendations for a forensics workstation: determine whether the data acquisition will take place, where the data acquisition would take place, whether it would be on premises or you'll have to send it to an external lab. With FireWire or a USB write blockers, FireWire is most commonly used because of the speed of the data which transfers on it, and you can acquire data easily using the digital intelligence or FireChef or a laptop computer or any tool that you are using. If you want to reduce the hardware carry, you can use Wibitech Forensics Drive Dock, which we discussed in our previous lecture. You can connect it to the hardware device, and then you can connect a a couple of other hard drives which goes in it, and it would create a replica of it. Recommendations when choosing a stationary or a lightweight workstation is it should be a full tower, allow the expansion devices. There is a beta version of the computers, and there is a full tower size. Now the problem with the beta version is that it's smaller in size, it takes less space, but there is a limitation of connecting different PCI ports or different devices inside the computer. So if you're setting up a computer for forensics analysis, make sure that it's full size where it can accommodate some stuff if you want to add certain gadgets to the computer. Different sizes of hard drives should be there and should be expandable. It should have more capacity to connect different SATA or eSATA hard drives to the computer. The power supply is very important, especially if you are connecting any GPU to the computer. Now you know that GPU consumes a lot of power, and then you must have proper cooling of that as well, whether it's a normal cooling or a water-based cooling. Depends what kind of setup you have. External firewire and USB ports should be there. Nowadays USB 3.1 is there, so USB 3 or 3.1 or any external firewire connection should be there. If you have slow connections on the PC itself, it would take a lot of time in order to transfer the data from one machine to another. And assorted drive adapters or bridges, because you never know if you are going to conduct an analysis on the hard drive of a laptop or a desktop PC, or it would be a SCSI hard drive, or you are going to conduct the analysis on the bring your own device like the mobile phones or the tablets. So it should have provision to connect any kind of devices with it. Ergonomic keyboard and mouse, very important because it takes a lot of time conducting the analysis. So make sure that you have comfortable keyboard and mouse which is ergonomically designed, so that even if you're sitting on those workstations and spending a lot of time, it should not affect you physically where you are feeling a bit tired after a couple of hours. Same goes for the desk and the proper lighting in the room. Plus you must have not 117-inch monitors. I would prefer having 23 inches various monitors which can be connected to the computer. If you are using a GPU, most of the GPUs are capable of connecting multiple monitors to the screen. Now that helps us in first of all connecting different remote workstations or remotely connecting those computers to the same computer, or by opening different windows separately where different analyses are being conducted on different machines. Personally speaking, I'm using 2 to 3 different monitors of at least 23 inches, and then I'm dividing the task on different computers where I can see the performance and the data which is collected on that. High-end video card for multiple monitors, and if you have a limited budget, one option is for outfitting your lab is to use high-end game PC. These specifications are more or less like a gaming PC, other than the reason that you won't be installing any games on these machines. Now, validating and testing the forensic software is important to make sure the evidence or the data which is recovered after analyzing, you can check it thoroughly before you can present it in it could be admitted in the court, where they will be taking your investigations for their jurisdiction, or any decisions will be made based on the analysis which is conducted on your machine and the data which is provided. So thoroughly check it that if it's matching, if it's 100% correct based on the data that you collected from the machine. You must test and validate your software to prevent damaging the evidence. Now, with the passage of time, it's not only one time. You'll keep on checking different softwares and tools that you are checking, that you are using, making sure that they are up to the mark and you are getting the right results every time. Further, This is very important to keep an eye on the latest releases of the softwares that you are using. Either they are open source or you have purchased the software. It should be thoroughly checked that the base operating system is compatible with the software that you are using, and both should be updated, making sure that you have all the latest features which are available or which are released by the vendor. Using National Institute of Standards and Technology published articles, they are constantly updating of all the latest practices and the tools for testing and forensics softwares which are released, which are being thoroughly tested and proven that they are the best ones available out there. You can manage the research for forensics tools, and NIST has created a criteria for testing by a ISO standard, which is 17025. Your lab must meet the following criteria: establish categories for digital forensics tools, different things for different, for example, the mobile phones, smartphone gadgets, and tablets, SSDs, NVRAM, or any kind of hard drive that you are using. Identify the test cases, establish a test method, and report the test results, and just to test it yourself. So we can follow these basic standards with operating system files, and SHA is a basic tool for that in order to check and verify the digital signatures that are there, and it helps us in filtering the known or the good data from the bad data, as we discussed it in our previous lecture. Now, there are different validation protocols available. You can always verify your results by performing the same task with other similar softwares. The best way to do that is that if you're not in a situation where you are actually conducting analysis on a actual suspect hard drive or a machine which has been compromised, you can take any machine and test the hard drive for forensics analysis using the tools that you have, and then compare all those results at different intervals of time. Maybe one software would be performing better than the other one, or on the other hand, we do compare the time as well which it takes in order to recover the data. Use at least two tools or any tools, a number of tools that you have. You can compare the results versus the time versus the resources which are required in order to do that, and at the end you can compare the results of it, that how successful the software has been. Once you get the results, verify it among each other and understand how forensics tools actually work. Every day we are learning new things with the software, maybe after a new release they might have added certain features in the software which could really help you in the investigative analysis. On the other way, you can compare the results and verify the new tools by using the disk editor tools like Hex Workshop or WinHex tools, which are free for a limited use, and if you want you can purchase the full version of it, but they work fairly well if you want to compare the stuff. Now, disk editors do not have a flashy interface usually. However, they are reliable tools and they can access the raw data which was stored on the computers. Examination protocols perform the investigation on with the GUI tools, and you can verify the results and the disk editor, seeing the overall performance of the disk, and you can compare the hash results with that. Now, digital forensics tools upgrade protocol, test the new releases, apply the OS patches and upgrades. If you find a problem, report it to the vendor, so that if early they detect, they'll release an update with the help of which it could rectify the problem, so that when you are actually conducting the investigation, you're not surprised with any kind of error messages which appear. Use a test hard drive for validation purposes, and check the web for the new additions and update patches which has been released by the vendor. That brings us to the end of this chapter. So just review the processes and different guidelines which are there. It's more of a subjective chapter where we discussed about various different tools that you can use, and even the kind of features that must be there. even the kind of computer that you can have in order to conduct these kind of analysis. That's it for today, guys. Thank you very much.